Welcome to Guests in Gusto, SCAD's virtual series of conversations and digital content with the creators and innovators remaking culture today. I'm Duke Greenhill, and I'm happy to introduce today David Schwen. David is one of the world's most celebrated graphic designers. He leads his creative studio, D. Schwen, in executing brand identities, video content, and social media campaigns. He was recently named Senior Design Manager for Pepsi North America. And in this Guests in Gusto, he is going to share insights from his 15 years of experience in the field. Make sure, of course, to follow him on Instagram at dschwim. And looking at the grid in front of me, we're going to have a lot of fun today, you all. I'm looking forward. As always, there is a Guests in Gusto poll, and it's time for that right now. For the poll today, you have the chance to win the book, The History of Graphic Design Volume 2, which I'm familiar with, and it's awesome. Whoever wins that is a lucky dog. But the question is, which collaboration would you like for David to speak more about? Flavorland for Fanta, Better Money Habits for Bank of America, Spread the Love for Volkswagen, or Famous Frames for Warby Parker. And after the conversation, of course, we'll have a brief moment for questions and answers. But until then, away we go. David, thank you for being here. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Cool. Thanks so much for having me, and thanks, Duke, for moderating. Excited to share a little bit of, my experience and a little bit of inspiration for you guys. So hopefully it's pretty helpful.
Well, we appreciate it, and I'm sure it will be. Speaking of help, the first question is a little bit to help me. The number one question I get from parents and from students sometimes is, what exactly is graphic design? I feel like you and I can't really have a conversation about it without first establishing our lexicon. So how would you define graphic design?
That is the age-old question that I get asked every Thanksgiving dinner at the family table. It's a hard one to answer sometimes. Sometimes you have to say, have you seen ads on TV? That's design. Have you seen print ads in magazines? That's design. But the way that I think of design is it's a little bit more. It's more about like holistically, it's an idea, it's concepts, it's however it comes to fruition, whether it's a social media video or if it's an illustration or if it's a TV broadcast spot. That's kind of just like how I think of it. And I think that I learned that early on, and it's definitely helped me to think of design in a bigger picture. So,
and I have to think that one of the reasons it's so difficult for even folks like you and I to define what we do is the constant evolution that the business, the industry, the craft undergoes. What do you imagine graphic design will mean, say, 5 years from now?
Yeah, I think everything is constantly evolving, whether it's the social media platform or how we're sharing things, how we're communicating. And, I think the way that design will evolve is thinking more about environment and social issues, and how to think of design in a bigger picture than just the typeface or a color or an illustration. It's how do we solve problems that are bigger? How do we use our creativity in a bigger light, to solve issues? So I think that design can kind of keep pushing the bounds of, things that we can do with it. So I think it'll be exciting to see how it keeps evolving. So
very cool. Thank you. So you recently were named the design director at Pepsi North America. This in addition to running your own shop, D. Schwen. What exactly does a design director do?
Well, it's kind of it's a mixed bag of things. I've kind of become a designer out of school. So I started out, making a lot of things when I was running my own design studio, still making things, but, doing a little bit more of directing where, I'll come up with some ideas and then find people to help execute it. Kind of collaborating is kind of a bigger thing. And, with my current job, it's got this great team of all these really talented people that, we all kind of collaborate together, concept, but it's literally like the team that makes the thing. So I think it's yeah, it's kind of it's a great place to be, in my career, and I'm just really thankful, just to be working, and it's working from home with the current state, but yeah, it's going great. Can't complain.
Cool. You mentioned the team, and certainly it takes a village to get something place as large as Pepsi North America what it needs. But I think it's easy for students and even for us as educators to forget that the interpersonal skills are just as important to success as creative chops. What is it like managing creatives, and what tips would you give the students in terms of ultimately growing into management positions?
Yeah, I think something that I learned when I started my own studio, you have like this idea in your mind of what it's going to be like. It's just going to be, party all the time. There's no boss, and you're just like making cool shit and just having fun. But then once you actually break off and do it, you realize like, oh, there's other things that comes along with this responsibility. It's invoicing clients. It's, paying bills. It's all these other things that you have to, it's finding a budget and working in Excel, which I hate, but it's sometimes part of the job. So I think it's the more you can learn all these other parts of the traits along the way, the better, because then it prepares you for when you get to this type of a role. But yeah, it's there's definitely a lot of things that you uncover once you get to this point, and things that you didn't realize were part of it. So
yeah, my least favorite bit was keeping my timesheet. For some reason, I could never remember to keep my timesheet.
I think yeah.
How do you find managing creatives different from, say, managing someone who's an admin or something like that? Or do they have, the stereotypical creative personality? How's it different?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I guess I haven't fully managed somebody that isn't a creative. So the great thing about creatives is that I can fully relate with them. I'm constantly coming up with ideas, and I love seeing how other creatives come up with ideas. So it's easier for me to relate with them at that level. So I think it definitely helps to kind of understand the problem they're trying to solve, and how can we all solve it together. So yeah,
certainly. And this question is coming from an old dude, but 15 years is relatively short to have risen to design director at Pepsi NA. One of the key tasks again for us and our students is to help them develop their personal brand so that they can elevate as quickly perhaps as you have. What's your sort of personal brand, and do you feed it? Do you think about it, or is it something that's just evolved with you in your career?
It's kind of something that's evolved. When I first broke off, or when I first graduated from school, I always tried to fight having like a set style, with illustration or with my design. I always tried to keep exploring, keep evolving, the types of projects I'm working on. So I think like that's also shaped who I've become now, is because, when I was working at all these design studios before I started my own studio, sometimes you get get a little caught up in a rut, you get a little stale. But with my own studio, I was able to really explore some different techniques that I've never tried before, trying to do animation that I've never tried before. And I think as long as you're always like learning, always evolving, and not scared to like fail, it definitely helps push your career, along. Because, if you're the type of a creative that just like, oh, I like this little box of creativity, I'm just going to stay here for the rest of my career, you won't get very far. You need to constantly be like seeing what else is out there, constantly, exploring, evolving, and, pushing your own style. So.
I mean, that's to me, at least in my experience, spot on. There is always the potential to become stale or tired of the work. And evolution, pushing yourself, seems to me also to be the key to sort of assuaging that possibility. I also found, and wonder if you do too, that the sort of battle, for lack of a better word, the tension between myself as a quote unquote artist and the commercial interests of the client or the company I'm working for, the tension that creates. How do you maintain authenticity to you as a maker and simultaneously to the commercial interests of Pepsi or your clients?
Yeah, I think definitely a good question, because it's constantly this struggle too, because I went to art school. I didn't even know about design until I got there. So when I got into more of the design side of it, there was always the art side of it that was still really important to me. So, you know, with me, a lot of the times sometimes there'll be a very specific client project that keeps, you know, very much a client project, but I always try to do other projects, like passion projects for myself, that I help, you know, it kind of helps to let me express more of the art side of it and the design side of it. There's no client and you're just making stuff for yourself. So I think that helps alleviate some of that pressure. But the best zone to be in is when you get a client, you know, or a brand that you're working with that believes in design, and they believe in the bigger picture, and they believe in like sustainability and all these other aspects that come together, that, you know, becomes like a really good partnership, because you're able to bring really good ideas to the brand. But then, you know, also there's still a business side of it. So you need to make sure that you're selling products and pushing the brand forward. But, you know, as long as you're engaging people in an interesting way, I feel like you still fulfill that passion of, you know, making things that's not just like for client work, you know, so.
Right. And,
Yeah.
you know, now I have to ask, because it begs the question, what are your passion projects right now?
You know, right now it's getting back into a little bit of a survival mode from the current year that COVID has given us. Recently moved to New York from Minneapolis. I was in Minnesota for a while, so new job, you know, new layout of the land. So I'm still trying to figure out what my next move is for passion projects. But I think the more experiences you have when you move and you do something new, it's like this big buildup of like all these ideas, and I'm just kind of waiting for it to kind of explode out and start creating and making things. And the nice thing too is that I've got this little sketchbook that I always carry around, and I'm constantly coming up with ideas. So it's like this resource I can keep going back to, and like, oh yeah, I remember that a couple of years ago when I jotted that down. I'm just gonna make it this weekend, because, you know, what else do you do, you know? So yeah.
Yeah, that's true. What else do you do? So we talked a little bit about Pepsi and a little bit about your shop, but for most of our students, the three, you know, most probable places for them to land, at least initially, are at an agency of some kind, creative studio of some kind, or brand side, or eventually starting a shop of their own. What are sort of, in your experience, the best and worst things about working in those three structures: agency side, brand side, and your own shop?
Yeah, it's definitely, everything is very different, and I've experienced all of them. So I feel like I've got a pretty good handle on a lot of the things I liked, a lot of things I didn't like. Good advice though is to never stop learning. You know, after you graduate, might be a very cliche thing to say, but don't stop learning. You know, you'll get to your first job, and there's going to be people that have been in the industry for 10, 20, 30 years that have all this knowledge. So tap into them, keep learning. The difference between a small studio and a bigger agency is that you'll have more responsibilities as a smaller studio. So as a designer, you'll also be like you'll handle production side, you'll go to press checks, you'll do a lot more. Sometimes with bigger agency, you know, there's a lot more roles that support those things. So I always think it's great to, you know, go to a small shop, so you learn about production, you learn about all these other sides of, you know, management and talking to clients. You know, at a smaller place, you might have more opportunity to talk to a client. So yeah, I think all of them have quite a bit big differences. And then working at a brand is, you know, I really enjoyed. I worked at Target when I was in Minneapolis, and now I'm at Pepsi. And the thing I enjoy is that instead of having so many different clients, you have one client. You know, it's the brand you're working for, and there's so many different projects that come within it. So it's like you think it's just literally just going to be like just a soda can, but it's like so many different projects and so many different like types of projects and variety. You know, it's pretty great. So
very cool. You mentioned lifelong learning, and I have to think that one of our tasks at SCAD as educators is to teach the students their craft, of course, but teach them how to be lifelong learners as well. What are some of the sources you go to for that continued learning? Blogs you read, industry rags, wherever you go to sort of get the fodder for that lifelong learn?
Yeah. You know, a lot of the times, especially when I'm working on projects for my own studio, a lot of the times we need to like find a way to build a set, or, you know, what lighting system to use, or what animation program to use. And I find myself going to YouTube a lot just to like look things up, how-tos. You know, we've had to like put together small clothing for these little mannequins for this Bank of America, and I swear I've watched YouTube videos of like 60-year-old women knitting together clothes to know how to like knit a little shirt for this mannequin thing. So it's like, watched a lot of weird YouTubes, granted, but you know, I find myself going there a lot. I recently learned 3D with Cinema 4D. Just kind of like opened it up, bought the tutorial, or not tutorial, just bought the program, watched some tutorials online, and you know, it's amazing how much you can kind of just pick up and learn just from like, because people put stuff out there, and it's just a lot of it's free. You know, there's so many different tutorials. You can just learn a new program, so it's pretty great. Yeah,
I'm still
internet is a great thing.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm still kind of internally chuckling about septuagenarian women cross-stitching on miniature mannequins. That must have been just a bevy of rabbit holes for you. I don't know how you got anything.
Oh yeah, the YouTube learned a lot of weird things. They thought they learned about me from watching those videos, but no,
yeah,
not true.
Your data points just got skewed a little bit.
Yeah.
As a design director, you must find yourself frequently giving critique as just part of the day-to-day job. How do you make sure you're giving effective critique? And how would you recommend students absorb and apply critique that they receive?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, critique is definitely something I learned all the way back in college. It was a very important part of our program too. And it's definitely carried through to my career. I've learned some things from places I've worked at and people I've worked with, and kind of learned a few things that help. Biggest thing is to grow very thick skin. You know, don't take it super personally if somebody is, you know, if they come down hard on your design work, or if it's a client doesn't like it, you know, just, you have to have very thick skin, and you have to really just understand what they don't like and try to figure out, oh, they don't like that color because they don't like green, but you have to learn how to back up that. Actually, it shouldn't be a subjective question about the color green, because green means this, and this would be really important for your brand. And so I think the best way to combat some of the feedback that you learn in critiques and from clients is to be very like objective about it. You know, always have a reason why you're choosing that typeface, or why you're doing that illustration style. You know, I think the best thing to do is like to always have your reasoning behind things. So definitely helps to kind of push along your work. And yeah, I think it's important too, like when you're on a team, is to like, we work as a big group, and we're always like, you know, looking at all the work together, and it's good to get as many eyes on something as possible, because you don't want to design in a vacuum. You know, you want to definitely, we all come from different experiences, so everybody can bring something new to the table. So I think it's really important just to not hide your design until the very last minute and then put it out there. Just, share stuff freely. So I think that's kind of a good way to talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah, you bet. And it's funny. I had a client, a big financial services client that if I said the name, which I won't, you would all probably recognize. And the CEO, the incoming CEO, a new guy, had a strong aversion to the color blue. And despite the fact it was a brand color, we couldn't use it in advertising. And it got me thinking about, intuition versus, justifiable, sort of supportable creative decisions. And I wonder in your work, do you always put intuition over that which comes from data or some sort of reason-oriented decision-making process? Is intuition the winner in those cases, or is there a balance? How do you work intuitively?
Yeah, it's definitely a tough thing. It's like you can't totally teach somebody to have like a good eye about something or about design or about making design choices that make sense, for the particular client. I think when you're at a certain level, you do need to take into consideration data and insights. It's definitely something that you're able to collect these days with the way the world is running. But at the end of the day, we are still humans. We are not robots, as far as I can tell. But so it's like, you have to take things that you've learned from your experiences, things that you've learned about typography, things you've learned about color, things that you've learned when just looking on the internet at blogs. You're taking all these things and you're accumulating it, and those are the things that help you make these decisions, and these are the things that help you give you the intuition of like, no, this is why I think this is the right decision. It's never a role of being like a dictator and saying like, this is it and this is it. It's like a dialogue. So you have to talk to the client about it. They have to express what they think about it, and then it's definitely more of a conversation, instead of just like, no, what I say goes. You have to like listen, give and take. So
you mentioned that we're humans and not robots, and my first thought was, well, I've worked with some people where I wonder.
Yeah.
But my second thought was, and that is sort of a great segue into this advent. I don't want to call it a trend because I think it's here to stay, but this advent of human-centric design, of bringing humanity into design. Can you talk a little bit about that? Is it something you think about? Is it?
Yeah, I think that's kind of what I touched on a little bit earlier. It's like, we all are humans. We're all, living together in this world. So design can be bigger. It can be like, trying to think about bigger topics of like, the environment and different things for social, like the world is just, it doesn't have to be limited to design. So I think, it's just like finding these other outlets and these other avenues to kind of learn from each other. How can we keep pushing this forward? Like we are human, like literally. So it's if we're in the Zoom world and everybody's working from home, what can we do that's different? How can we engage with people in a different way? And I think it's really great that I've been doing presentations for a while in person in these big auditoriums and whatever, and it's like COVID happened, so these things are still happening. And I think it's a great thing. It's a good testament of we just keep pushing on. We find new ways to do it, and I think as long as we keep doing that, like that'll be key. So we just got to keep evolving.
Amen. In sort of again, going back to the confluence of design and business, frequently, at least in my experience, some of the ideas which I thought were best couldn't or wouldn't ever get made. Can you tell us a little bit about any great ideas you felt like you had that for whatever business reasons didn't or couldn't get made?
Oh, that's the hardest thing. Working at agencies, there's been so many great ideas that just got kicked to the floor, when they're on the wall, and you just shed a little tear inside because in your heart, you knew that was the best idea. It's hard to pinpoint exact ones, but there's definitely been times where, you feel so strongly, you know, that the client or the brand you're working with thinks elsewise, but it's a little hard because, you know, you want to just keep fighting and you just don't want to give up on that idea. But at the end of the day, you have to realize that, you know, ideas, they can evolve and they can come back later. You know, I've reused, not like a recycling idea, but it's sometimes you have an idea for another project and then later it doesn't sell through, and then later there's the great opportunity for it and you evolve it a little bit, and it's kind of the great thing. You can reincarnate ideas as long as you know, as long as it's okay. But yeah, I think it's tough, you know. There's been some, I wish I could think of some right off the top of my mind. I know some have involved cats for Volkswagen. We had this, man, okay, I think I can remember this one now. So we were doing this work for Volkswagen and wanted to do this idea of, they wanted us to focus on these different features of like you know, their cars can stop when they know something's coming. So we had this idea of setting down this bag of groceries on this counter, and the grocery bag tips over. There's this orange that starts rolling on the counter, and then it starts to roll even bigger, kind of like Indiana Jones style, coming towards you. And you see a vase at the end of the counter, and it's heading right for it. And then right when it gets to the vase, it stops. And there's the little beeping sound, like on a Volkswagen when it knows when it stops. And you think the video is over. It's like, oh yeah, da, da, da. And then a cat comes up and hits the vase off anyways, and the vase goes on the floor. So like, I thought it was like such a great twist. It's like plays at their benefits of the car, you know, really fun, exciting, and then at the end you still have like a little humor. So I guess that was a good example of one.
I promise we won't steal that example. But it's interesting, you know, I had an ECD say to me once, similar to what you said, ideas never die. And I like this notion of reincarnating them better than recycling them. So I might steal that from you.
There you go.
But we talked a little bit about balancing, for lack of a better term, artistic integrity or authenticity with commercial interests. What about balancing work with life? What we do, particularly in the agency world, and certainly on the brand side, when you've risen as high as design director, can be a lot of hours of the day. How do you balance life with work?
Yeah, it definitely can be tricky. I've worked at some places in my career that have been very, you know, lots of long hours, very much to the grind. And then I've also worked at places that are very like, you know, 9 to 5, and it's not like you're doing any less of a job. It's about time management, and it's getting stuff done, you know, when it needs to be done, and also knowing the importance of recharging, because if you're working like, you know, starting at 9 and going all through the night and then getting back up the next day, you're not going to be fully recharged, and you're not going to like have those other life experiences that take place after you're done at 5 o'clock till the next day. And those are the experiences that we're bringing to the table in design and advertising. You know, it's like you're going for a bike ride and you're seeing the graffiti on the wall that inspires you somehow, or you're having a conversation with a friend about this new technology. And those are the things that we bring to design that helps, you know, inspire us and influence what we're making. So I think without having the life balance, like you're actually taking away from what we're bringing to design. So I think it's really important. And I think it's like, sometimes can be hard to express to, you know, to your boss or to an agency you're working at, the importance of it. But if you can find a place that values it, definitely grab onto that.
Definitely. I'd second that. And it's kind of a nice symmetry back to humanity. In order to create experiences, we have to go out and experience things.
Yep.
That is basically what you were saying, I think.
Yeah.
I dig that. So what are some of your favorite guilty pleasures? When it's lifetime and not work time, what do you find yourself doing?
Guilty pleasures. Well, I'm big into biking, so I like to bike everywhere. I did that a lot in Minneapolis, and now been biking around Brooklyn a little bit. So I very much enjoy that. I also like hiking, getting out into nature, you know, going to places that are, you know, there's no cell signal. You have to rely on maps, and you're just you have everything on your back and you're just hiking around for a few days and just, yeah, I love things like that. I think both of those things help me recharge, you know, like being cut off when I'm hiking, like definitely helps me to not like worry about checking emails, and you get lost in your own thoughts. And I think that I've come up with some pretty creative ideas doing that. And it's kind of the same with biking too. It's, you know, when you're doing something, you know, you're walking or you're running or you're biking, your mind shuts off and you're able to think differently than you would if you're sitting at your desk trying to come up with a concept. So I think those moments help my creativity in a way too. So
Yeah, definitely. And it's, I heard somewhere, I wish I could remember where, someone said, if technology stops working, you just unplug it, plug it back in, and it'll work again. And it's the same for human beings. Just unplug for a second.
you
What is your creative process? Do you have one that you're sort of consciously aware
know, you know, it's kind of different on each project, I guess. You know, usually if I'm starting a project, I like to just sometimes I'll word list, you know, just do a brain dump of different thoughts that just come out when I'm, you know, you've got the problem or the thing you're trying to think of, and just write stuff down. And then, you know, from there, sometimes I'll just start sketching, you know, sketching out some ideas, or like kind of exploring different things that, you know, looking what else has been done in this area and kind of seeing what other people have done, you know, as like what not to do, or, you know, what the other brand is doing, or I think it's kind of different for each project, but I think it's a process that we all learn, and everybody has a different one. So I think it's good to you know, figure out what your own process is. If it works well, you know, keep doing it. It's not like you have to do the exact same thing, like, oh, time to word list, oh, time to sketch, oh, time to get into the computer. It's different, you know. Sometimes I get right into the computer and start sketching on there. Or sometimes, you know, it just depends on, you know, what you're kind of feeling and the vibe of it. So yeah.
So a very intuitive process for you.
Yeah, I think
Cool.
so.
How do you know, or do you? Is there some sort of signal that you get when you're ideating that indicates to you, oh, this is a good idea, this is something I should chase down?
Sometimes it comes and you think that it's like a really great idea, and you're just super excited about it, put it out into the world, you know, you post it, Instagram, blah blah, and literally just crickets. You know, you're just like, okay, I guess that wasn't it. And then there'll be another idea where you're like, it's kind of fun, it's kind of cool, whatever, you know, like you put it out into the world, and then it's just like everybody loves it. So it's like sometimes you can't really know. And I think that's the importance of, you know, what I learned is that, you know, just put stuff out there. You know, you have to kind of learn for yourself and find out what sticks and what doesn't. And the important part is that it doesn't even matter, you know, if you're posting stuff on social media, it doesn't really matter the likes and everything. It's just putting stuff out there to share. And you know, you learn so much from, you know, what people say or what people comment, or what works and what doesn't. So yeah.
And the importance of that thick skin you were talking about before.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it calls to the fore too, the iterative nature of creativity, of what we do. I hate the word failure, but maybe unsuccessful attempts is a better term. But could you talk to us a little bit about how, I'm sure in your career you must have had to embrace quote unquote failure, unsuccessful attempts, in order to get to the attempt that turns out to be the right one?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've given a presentation on failure before. I I 100% believe in it. I think it's like the being scared of failing, I think, is the thing that is the biggest inhibitor for creativity. You know, you're scared to try that new style. You're scared to, you know, try the hand-drawn typography, or you're scared to like learn 3D program. And those are the things that holds us back. You know, you might try those things, you might fall on your face and you might fail, but you won't really know until you try it. So I think that's kind of how I've started to really grow as a creative, is I would always try to just, you know, keep learning, keep failing, and keep trying to like well, that didn't work. Let's try something else. Or, sometimes you pitch an idea to a client, or you have a certain process that you think is going to work. And then you build it, and everything is in your head that you think is going to work. And then it just collapses and it just doesn't work. And you're just like, well, that didn't work. Now what? Let's figure something else out. So you just have to like roll with the punches sometimes. And I think not being afraid to fail is key. So
absolutely. Thank you for that. So I don't know how much you are involved in hiring. Certainly at your own shop, you must be. What advice, if any, or what outlook would you pass on to our students in terms of leaving college during these global circumstances and looking for a job?
Yeah, it's such as they say in all the commercials, it's an unprecedented time, but it really is. It's this time that I can't imagine starting a job right now. But I've seen people on my team that they have started, and they just start completely working remotely. They open up Zoom, and that's like their first day. And it's like, it's a weird thing to think about, but it's happening. It's kind of like what we were talking about, is we're evolving. If this is a new way, at least for right now, of working, then you just have to evolve with it. And it might be a little weird to not like go into an office, but if you haven't done that before, then you won't even know it's different then.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think the best thing to do is that as a creative during these weird times is to try to, push yourself as much as you can. Don't be like, oh, I'm too good to work on that, or, like that's beneath me, or, like have a very good attitude, just be like, yeah, I can jump on that, or I'd love to help you on that thing, or be the person that adds the extra, critique, to somebody that's putting something out there. And I think, as long as you have a good attitude and you're like really trying to like push yourself and put yourself out there, I think it's really a good thing, as employers are looking for people that have a lot of that ambition and a lot of the, just the willingness to just, make some awesome design, so.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it's about, right?
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about sort of the body of your client work. It sounds to me in researching you to get ready for this that, one of the wonderful things that I loved about my career was working with a variety, polar opposite clients back and forth. And Fanta, for example, to B of A has got to be a very different experience. Talk to us a little bit about what it's like working across such a variety of industries and verticals. How do you chameleon yourself that way?
Yeah, it's tricky, working on a financial client, Bank of America, and then going to like McDonald's or some food brand. It's, I love that challenge. I also love it when clients say, oh, have you ever worked on a pharmaceutical brand before? And, because they're waiting for somebody that says yes. And I'm like, no, I haven't, but, I can take everything that I've learned from everything else and all my work experiences and make great work for your brand, just as I have for all these different diverse brands and clients. So I think it's like, it's really key to, like I said before, not get stuck in a certain style, because, it can limit yourself. Because then if you do have a certain style, your work might not work for a pharmaceutical or a financial brand. It's being able to be a chameleon, to evolve, and to think about what's best for the client that you're working on. What's the best way to communicate this? What style is it? What photography style? What colors? And I think to kind of take yourself out of the moment of your own likes and your own like subjective feelings, and think about what's best for that project that you're working on. I think that's the key to be able to bounce around on a lot of different client work. So
very cool. Thank you for that. So what's next for you? What's left undone? What's sort of the next dream move?
That is a good question. I don't know. I think it's the age-old question. I kind of thought it was just going to be, working my own studio for a while, and then this job came up at Pepsi, and I just the opportunity to move out to New York and try something new, and it was all very exciting. So I guess kind of just see how it goes with, you know, I'm loving what's going on now. It's a weird time we're living in, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's just trying to find new ways to keep, keep making things. And I think as long as you do that, like as long as you're just getting your creativity out there and just just being a good overall human being, I think that's all that we can really do at this point. Yeah.
Amen. Well said again, my friend.
Yeah.
So I want to go to the poll question real quick, which the results of which have come in. And the 100 and some odd folks in the room right now want to hear more about Volkswagen Spread the Love. What can you tell us about the concepting and production of that campaign and your role in it? What was it like?
Yeah, no, that was a really great project. That was also the idea that died on the floor that I talked about earlier. That was for the same project. So that idea, it was just for social videos. Volkswagen was coming out of a time where they were, it was kind of during the whole diesel thing that had happened. So they're trying to like reestablish themselves as the brand of, the happy brand. And they just wanted to create some really just fun, creative content. They didn't have like a lot of big, asks that they wanted us to do, but they're like, here's some of our interesting features if you can highlight those somehow. So I think that our role was to try to find a way to engage people, but not make it feel like it's an ad, or if it's you're really trying to sell something. But so I worked as like we directed to get some of those. We had the sets made, we were shooting it all like stop motion style, which was really fun. Some of the sets were huge, and yeah, it was really fun, and it was really interesting. And I think it was really, you learn a lot from different projects, but I think that one was a really good learning project for, finding different ways to create videos for like the same, project. Like they wanted 3 videos, and we tried to come up with 3 pretty drastically different, ideas for it. So yeah.
It's interesting to me when I saw that work, I thought it was, successful for a number of reasons, but certainly because it felt like an honest, authentic, human response to that issue. Did you all go into it thinking of it as crisis response or reputation correction, or did you go into it sort of thinking of it as but a continuation of what the corporation has always wanted to be?
Yeah, I think for me, it was always just, I've always thought of Volkswagen as this really, cool brand, peace, love, happiness sort of feeling and vibes. And I think that I kind of channeled that inner, experience that I've had with the brand, and just, tried to find ways to like, just engage with people in a really like happy and thoughtful way that, like on one of the videos, this little guy walks in and basically steals the car out of the Instagram ad. So just finding these little moments that just give people a little smile, when they're like scrolling through their feed, I think is like, it's pretty impactful, especially for brands.
And just a smile is making the world a better place. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and start turning it over to some of the student questions, folks who are in the room with us right now. And they've got some interesting stuff coming up here. One question from Olivia. You mentioned that you didn't really get into design until college. What made you make that pivot? What made you so curious about design at that point in your life?
Yeah, so I went to a pretty small high school, very rural Minnesota. So, I was very much into drawing and illustration and pottery and photography, and I just really didn't know. I didn't even really know about design when I went to high school. So when I got to school, I went there for illustration, and I took my first graphic design 1 class, kind of fell in love with it because I realized, and I had a very good teacher that talked about design in a bigger picture. And he's like, well, you love illustration, but design is basically that too. Illustration is design, and there's typography, and there was so many different other facets to it that I loved the all of the variety. It's like motion graphics and like video and like all these different things that you can like work on with design. So I think it just opened my eyes to just so much more that I could do with this. So I think that's kind of what made me fall in love with design.
Very cool. There's a question about creative block, and I guess I have to preface it with asking, because some people don't, do you even believe in creative block? And if so, how do you combat it when you have it?
Yeah, I believe in it. I feel like the people that don't are just lying.
I
It's
think
real.
so too.
It's let's be human. It's everyone's, yeah, I think, but yeah, you have to like, I feel like I have creative block right now. No, literally, like if I have a creative block like that, I'm gonna go for a walk. I'm gonna go for a bike ride. I'm gonna like stop thinking about it. Like that's my best solution, is to like to solve a problem, is to stop thinking about it. It sounds terrible, but honestly that kind of is you have to turn off your mind. You have to just like live your life, have these experiences, and then I feel like that's the time when your brain is like slowly processing it and trying to solve this problem, and like then you have that aha moment when you're literally out with your friends at wherever. And I think that you just have to find those types of activities for yourself, those things that help you get out of that creative block, or ways that help refresh yourself, so that, because literally if you're just going to sit at a table, if you have a creative block and you're just going to sit there longer, and like it's not going to work. Get up from the table, walk away, come back.
Yeah, staying with it is some form of masochism, I have to think. Some of the best advice I ever got was, if you're blocked, just walk away, find another way around. We talked a little bit about, I guess, fear, for lack of a better word, but unsuccessful attempts, iteration, failure. And there's a question here that sort of alludes to something real interesting to me. The question is thinking outside the box scary? And the sort of addendum that I would add to that is being a little afraid a good sign that you're on the right path to something cool?
Yeah, I think so. I think it kind of goes back to the whole failure thing that I was talking about. Yeah, I think thinking out of the box can be terrifying sometimes, because I've had projects where I had this great idea, but I didn't fully know how to make it, but I knew that it was the best idea. And I knew that there's so many other creatives out in the world that I could collaborate with or team up with to make it happen. So, sometimes you just have to realize that, you might have to collaborate to make something happen, because you don't know a certain technique, or, if you need a videographer to work with or something. So I think working out of the box, yes, very scary, but you have to embrace it, find some other people to help support you. And then, like I said, if you just have to learn a new skill, just get your hands dirty and do it. So, yeah.
Cool. Great answer, by the way. There's some questions coming in about tools, about software. If you could only use one piece of software for the rest of your career, which one would it be and why?
Whew, that's tricky. Man. Maybe Photoshop. Yeah, I mean, there's quite a bit of things you can do with Photoshop. You can even do animation, GIFs, like a lot of fun things. I think I find myself, sketching sometimes in there. It's like a good place to just kind of be more free. When you're in other programs, sometimes it can just be very like, clunky, like drawing vectors and having to be very precise. But I kind of love the Photoshop and just being able to like, draw over stuff quickly and just, yeah, I guess that would be my go-to. Sure, I'll pick that one.
I'd choose the second one. Tell us a little bit about what starting your own shop is like. There must have been, trials, tribulations, wonderful moments, not so wonderful moments. What was it like starting a business?
Yeah, it was terrifying. It's kind of like taking this leap of faith, hoping you succeed. And it was definitely I had a lot of interest coming in from different clients and brands when I was already at a job. So I think I had that base knowing that there was enough out there to help. So that helped me, just knowing that I'm not just like jumping off, into the water and not being able to swim. At least I knew, there was something that I could at least have a base to start on. And I think that that's key when you're starting your own business. It's definitely also very tricky. You're going to want like a lot of, save some money, there's going to be slow times, there's going to be very crazy times. So you just have to also ride out those storms. We've had some times where it was like, project after project after project, and then all of a sudden it's just crickets. And you just have to be like, well, they'll come back. But, what I found in those times, of those really slow times, is that I would still just make stuff for myself anyways, and then put that out there. And then sometimes those projects would bring in clients. So yeah, it's a different way of new business, I guess, but
yeah, if it works, man.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about portfolios. What advice do you have in terms of building a successful portfolio, which I guess means a job getting portfolio? And what do you look for in portfolios when you're hiring?
Yeah, totally. Quality over quantity. I would say that, don't just put as much as you can in there just to make it look like you have a lot. Just put very like thoughtful projects in there. I always try to look for things where people, they are very thoughtful about, their decisions, and what's the concept? What's your thinking behind this? Like I said before, like, why did you choose that color? Why is it important? I think just putting that extra thought into the portfolio is pretty important, so that, as I would look at a portfolio, I know that you're not just like making something pretty, but you have like a very conceptual thinking behind it. I think that that's also very helpful. But yeah, don't just like pack it full just to pack it full. Put your best stuff in there, and try to show diversity too. Try to show, that you can, work on this animation thing if you learned that in school, or if you worked on something else, logo design. So trying to show that you're able to kind of work on different types of projects too. So
do you have a sort of design or creative hero, someone that you would point to say as, perhaps your greatest influence or something of that nature?
Oh, that's a tough one. Let me think. Man, I thought I had one on the back of my mind, but now I'm trying to think. Maybe come back to that one and see if I get it. Yeah.
What inspires you? I mean, nature certainly is one thing.
Yep.
It sounds to me like relationships too. Like it's a people craft to you. What else?
Yeah, I think the things that inspire me is, I love to see how people react to, the work that I'm making and putting out there. And I'm inspired that, sometimes it might make somebody laugh in their day, or it might like brighten up their day in a little way. But I'm also inspired in different ways of like how other creatives are making things, as you're looking for inspiration out there, don't just look at designers or, graphic designers. Look everywhere. I'm inspired by photographers and filmmakers and, musical artists. And I think trying to just not limit, all of the people and inspirations you're taking in is key. Just try to be very open to, a lot of the different inspiration out there. Like I'm inspired by walking down the street and seeing, like I said, like graffiti or something that, the color makes me think of something, and then I, come up with an idea for something. So just, try not to like turn it off, just, yeah.
It's funny, the moment you said graffiti, a student typed into here that he was inspired by graffiti art. Last question for you, David, and thank you again for being here. I think it's sometimes easy for students to imagine that getting to where you are in your career, or any of us, was somehow easy, because we come into these things and we talk about being hired at Pepsi and we talk about starting our own shop, and rarely in interviews like this are we asked about our horrible failures. What sort of inspirational advice might you give students in the context of helping them remember that where you've gotten wasn't easy?
Yeah, nothing happens overnight, that's for sure. You just have to kind of stick with it, and grow some thick skin. When you get into your first job, like I said, just try to like be very ambitious and try to say like, how can I help on this? Or you see another project and you're like, hey, actually I've got an idea for that. Can I help you on that project? Trying not to just put yourself in a box of like, I just got out of school and I'm gonna design the new Nike logo. Here I go. Like, just you gotta start out, ease out, ease yourself in there, just like take stuff on and try to do your best on it, and just you're going to learn something really, really important from that project that you'll carry on to the next project, and your design skills will continue to evolve, and you'll kind of grow your craft. It's something that I think we're always learning, we're always honing our skills. So I think that's very important, just to not stop. Like I said, don't grow stale. Don't just say like, yeah, I'm content, I think I've done enough. It's like, I like this style, this little box that I'm in. No, you gotta keep pushing yourself and keep striving for more, and yeah, don't stop growing. So
wonderful answer, and honest too. We appreciate that. Thank you. So thank you again, David Schwen, for being here with us today. And thanks to you all who joined us in this Zoom room. Please join us tomorrow, Friday, September 18th at noon, where yours truly will be discussing the power of story and harnessing the power of story in our everyday communications. So again, thank you all. Thank you, David. It's been a pleasure, and I hope to see some of you tomorrow for my deal. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.